Hey there everyone, Mazrock here, and today I want to do my 9.1 Protection Warrior Guide. I have been having a lot of fun maining this spec in 9.0, coming into 9.1 again, and it has honestly taken off. I love it so much. I know we're not the meta right now, but soon people are going to be able to see the strengths of the Prot Warrior. Now before I get into the guide, talents, soulbinds, trinkets, all of that fun stuff, if you like this type of content, please subscribe. It goes such a long way and would be greatly appreciated. Catch me on Twitch. I am changing some hours around. I did have to get a new job, which kind of, I'm working some stuff around there. I am going to try and be streaming more, Tuesday days, things like that, and try and find more time to put more hours in on stream. Family life and work obviously makes this difficult, and this is kind of just like a passion project for me at this point. So, let's go from there. So, right off the bat, let's start with the Shadowlands choice. Covenants. Protection Warrior is still coming from 9.0 to 9.1 in a very good position in Covenant-wise. You can pick any one and still push, still be good, still do the high end, and it does not matter. So whether you want to play Necrolord, Venthyr, Night Fae, or Kyrian, they're all good. There are some best, there are some optimal, but the difference between the best and the worst is much more minimal than some other classes who, if they play one class, they'll do like 5k DPS, and if they play another Covenant, they'll do like 10k. Like, big disparity there. Warrior's really good in that way, where you can hone in on which one you want, and each one has a little bit of a different playstyle, and they have strengths at different things. Now, the least optimal is Venthyr, which changes your execute to condemn, which allows you to use it above 80% health and of course below 20%. It gives you a little mini ignore pain. It's nice. It's a good option. Like, if that was my only option and that's what I got for the entirety of Shadowlands and I didn't know about the other three, I wouldn't be crying about it. But it is your least optimal. Do with that what you will. Necrolord is really good in highly organized play. So if you are playing with an M+ group or a raid group, which you guys are min-maxing who gets what buffs where, Necrolord can increase the other people's damage by anywhere from 4 to 8% during a raid encounter. It can get really wild like that, but it has to be organized. If it's just willy-nilly, I'm popping banner, whoever gets it, it falls off a little bit, but it still is a really fun playstyle. And Fleshcraft gives you a massive absorb shield because you are a tank, you are a Prot War, you have, like right now with no buffs, I'm sitting at 84k health. Okay, once you get all of the buffs, the stand buff and everything, I have seen me easily go up to 100k. Really nice. One of my favorite Covenants coming into Shadowlands for Prot War was Night Fae. Not for the aesthetic, but Ancient Aftershock. My god, I still love this ability. Spoiler alert, I swapped to cut Kyrian some time ago. I don't regret it at all, but I do miss Ancient Aftershock and Soul Shape. Soul Shape, whoo! I mean, it's been touted for long enough. You've been watching WoW videos long enough, most likely you know how good Soul Shape is. But Ancient Aftershock is a 12-second kick. So what it does is it puts out this big Aftershock, and every 3 seconds it'll kick any cast of anybody in the zone. In M+, this is amazing. When I first swapped from Night Fae to Kyrian, I was wondering why I started taking way more damage. It's because I was saving Aftershock for big pulls, especially big magic pulls, and they could just never get their cast off. It just never worked. And because it's not a stun, it's just a knockback, it doesn't get the same diminishing returns as if people are stunning their AoE mobs to try and, help the tank live. Ancient Aftershock is a wonderful thing if you want to just have a lot of fun, and it deals a lot of damage. If you want to have a lot of fun, Night Fae is a very good option. Now, for my most optimal, my apologies, and the one that I have come to absolutely fall in love with, which is funny because I told myself going into 9.0, no, coming into Shadowlands, I would actually never drink the Kool-Aid and go Kyrian. Well, I drank the Kool-Aid and went Kyrian. Spear of Bastion is so much fun. You can use it as a defensive cooldown to kite, plop it down, everything's stuck there, you see them chasing you and just get pulled back like a bungee cord. Great, but it also deals an absolute crap ton of damage. In M+, right now, is dealing anywhere from 20 to 25% of my damage in the course of a dungeon. Now, that's because of a Soulbind Mechanicos. I'll talk about that later. But it is a super solid option. Rage gen, big damage, all around good and defensive if you need it. And the file, oh my god, the file. The file just heals a lot. It removes any stack of necrotic that it is when you use it. It removes poisons, bleeds, diseases, all of it. It gives warriors something they really need that they are struggling with big time. Warriors aren't good with bleeds. We're just not. So being able to file off heavy bleeds from Halls of Atonement, the little invisible lines, inspires, things like that, is a huge help to your healers. Will let you stay in the fight and feel like a warrior that much longer instead of having to kite. Now, you're going to have to kite anyway because we are in a kiting meta, but you don't have to kite as much as a Kyrian, which I really, really enjoy. But when you have to, plop down your Spirit Bastion. It's beautiful. That is, for that, what are the strengths? Strengths are physical damage. And that is shield block. Shield block right now is one of the best defensives in the game. Most of the damage, if you look at your damage taken in the course of an M+ or a raid, is going to be the basic melee of whatever is trying to hit you. Shield block negates so much of that. Like, so much of that. It's so nice. I love it to death. And the key is to try and keep it up 100% of the time. The legendary that we use in this spot is Reprisal, which if you're thinking about making a legendary, which warriors have a couple, Reprisal would be my first one. It's alright in raids. It's good. It's not the best most times, but it's good. And in M+, it is absolute the god tier right now. You got to be using Reprisal in M+. It just is fantastic. So what it does is charge, intervene, grant you shield block for 4 seconds, and a proc of revenge, and it generates 20 rage. So you're charge weaving, so you're heroic leaping out, charging right back in, keeping that shield block uptime at 100% while just dealing big damage and using ignore pains for any magic damage that might be coming in your way. Weaknesses, bleeds and magic damage. Now, Spell Reflect is OP. I'm going to get to that one a little bit later. But it can only really do one thing at a time or one thing simultaneously. Again, I'll get to that a little bit later. So if you're working with like the Wicked Bolts in Halls of Atonement and the Obliterators are just spamming them, Warrior's going to have a very hard time with them. You could pull in like 14 Groundskeepers if you want. As long as you got your shield blocks up, those Groundskeepers aren't going to do a whole lot. They wreck you physically, but you have the mitigation for it. Magic damage is still a little bit weaker in that department for Warrior. So kind of go into dungeons knowing that if you see, oh, I see this Vengeance Demon Hunter making this pull here, might not be the best pull for you, where you see a Vengeance Demon Hunter pull something else and they get decimated. I'm just using Vengeance Demon Hunter. It's nothing personal or anything, but I'm just using them as an example because it's available. And they get decimated, that might be your best pull, because you might actually take like no damage because of shield block. It all depends on how you keep that mitigation up and working like that. And before you guys get at me, I don't really know much about Vengeance Demon Hunters. I don't play them. That's just not my class fantasy. Sorry, tried. Not for me. Nothing against them. You want to play it, love it. I've DPS for some great and healed some great Vengeance Demon Hunters. Just not for me. So I don't actually know the class spec that well. Let's leave it at that. Now, what I want to get into right now is the importance of Spell Reflect. There are so many things that you can Spell Reflect, and this is the key to a great prot warrior, is knowing when to use that. Mordretha and Theater of Pain. Spell Reflect that Reaping Scythe, you can do every second one. 0 damage. That is the big tank buster for that fight. You will immediately, especially on higher end keys, or like plus 15, 16s, you will notice the ones that you can't Spell Reflect, you're going to go from 100 to 40% health like that. You can Spell Reflect that. 100% damage mitigation. Done. And all it is timing that. And like, for example, the Ether Worms in Spires, you can actually Spell Reflect their cast, which really, really hurt. In fact, if you hit them with a Shockwave, thank you, Pika.tv. He's the one that put this out in the World in the Titan Forge podcast, which is a really good episode. I'll link that down in the comment section down below. If you're looking for a little bit more prot warriors, he is the #1 prot warrior in the world. So great source of information for him there. Now, if you reset the Ether Worms with Shockwave, they'll all start casting their cast simultaneously. You Spell Reflect it, you're #1 DPS for pressing one button, and your healer loves you because you took no damage. Which is usually, those guys are deceptively like tough to deal with. And then of course you have like Glodtrob. Plaguefall. That was 40% of my damage on a 17 Tyrannical. Just spell reflecting Plague Stomp was 40% of my damage. You will take no damage from it. You still get the knockback, but you charge right back in, which is what you want because reprisal. And then you go in from there, which is just absurd. And then you just see your spell reflect damage rise because there's a dot that Plague Stomp puts on you that you reflect back on the boss. So finding these things to spell reflect is key. The Soul Crusher, DOS, you should be doing that for every Soul Crusher that you can. Spell reflect along with shield block, you're going to take minimal damage, whereas in other tanks, that's kind of a tank buster. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with spell reflect, and it is highly underrated, and it is seriously OP when you use it right. So, spell reflect. Now let's go on to raid legendaries, which I have come to prefer the wall. The wall is kind of your go-to anyway, it's what they recommend. So Shield Slam generates 5 additional rage, 5 rage, and reduces the remaining cooldown of Shield Wall by 5 seconds. It just brings Shield Wall down to like a minute and a half cooldown. Minute 20, minute 40, depending on how the raid's going. Which, it's just so good. It's just so good. It allows you to plan your heavy mitigation a lot better, especially for things like Painsmith, where you can really, really work that around. So, that's it there. Alright, now onto the talent portion of the 9.1 Prot Warrior. In the first row, Devastator, keep it there. While I was leveling, I preferred Punish, not gonna lie, but then you hit a point where you actually have a lot of buttons to press, and Devastator was way better. Double Time is my absolute go-to, especially while I'm running the Reprisal Legendary, although Stormbolt is a fantastic option as well if you are not charge weaving or doing any of that stuff. Stormbolt is a fantastic 4-second stun that is ranged, adding a nice little bit to your toolkit. With the Reprisal Legendary, Best Serve Cold is my absolute go-to here, without a doubt. During raid, Booming Voice. So Demo Shout generates 40 rage, which is needed in raid because you're not charging anywhere near as much, and increases the damage you deal to affected targets by 20%. Very, very good cooldown, especially for raiding. Bounding Stride is my set it and forget it, especially for M+. Even in raid, having that Heroic Leap on a 30-second cooldown, mint, but it also allows you to charge weave way more often. So for Mythic Plus, Bounding Stride is my go-to. Indomitable is really the only thing you're ever going to use here as a tank. It heals you a lot. It does most of my healing, most times, in M+, and is just a solid all-around pick. Now this here on the last 2 rows. So this is where we do get some options here, and it is between 2 on each row. Ravager is my go-to for anything AoE, because it generates a lot of rage the more things that you get to hit. It's not about the damage, it's about the rage gen, which allows you to cast more revenges, get your shield blocks, ignore pains, things like that. So for M+, Ravager is my absolute go-to, or any heavy AoE fights in raids. And I can't say heavy AoE, it's on a 45-second cooldown, so anything that's got a lot of ads. Like Fate Scribe, I've been running Ravager because it generates a nice bit of rage while all those ads are there, and it's been working really, really well. But if you want to run into the fray, if you are anything but a Venthyr Prot Warrior, Venthyr would stay with Ravager the whole time. Any of the other 3 Covenants into the fray for raiding is a fantastic option. And the reason Ravager is really good for Venthyr is that rage regeneration for the extra Condemn, which becomes an extra defensive. It just all works well with each other. Lastly, for M+ and raiding. Now for raiding, I go with Bolster because I'm going with the Wall Legendary, and Bolster pairs very, very well with it. Now in M+, there's honestly arguments to be made for both. I've been saying this for a long time. The DPS difference between both is not that much. I did a 14 Mist of Tierna Scythe because it was the 2 keys that we had in our guild that I could run side by side for testing. Anger Management pulled 6.4k overall. Bolster pulled 6.2. The DPS difference is minimal. Yes, it's higher with Anger Management, but Bolster can cover up what you may be bad at. And if you are not great at having 100% shield block uptime, Bolster would be your way to go. 15 seconds of shield block every 2 minutes is solid, and then you add the Unnerving Focus Soul Conduit, which increases rage regen by 50% while Last Stand is active. It can also become an offensive cooldown just as much as a defensive one. So it works really, really nice. Where Anger Management comes into play, Now with this, you're going to bring down your avatar on the same cooldown as your Ravager, which is very, very nice as long as you're constantly spending the rage in fights, which you should. Shield blocks, ignore pain, revenge, all cost rage. It's just super solid. But what it also does, it reduces the cooldown of shield wall by 1 second for every 10 rage that you spend. This will give you a lot more oh shit moments. Like, I need this now during the course of a dungeon. Now, if you don't feel like you need that and you're not pressing shield block enough or a shield wall enough or things like that, bolster might be the right play for you. I've been running anger management on a lot of them, especially the heavy magic ones. Like DOS, the other side, anger management, I get way more shield walls for those heavy magic pulls that warrior's just not super fantastic at dealing with. Heavy physical dungeons, bolster's been a good play for me because you can just kind of set it and forget it, hit last stand, start doing damage, do big stuff. It's really, really nice. So that is the talent portion of 9.1 Prot War. Alright, so with what I said about the covenants beforehand with Prot Warrior, I am going to cover the Soulbinds for Kyrian in particular. Notable Soulbinds and other covenants are Emily for Necrolords, Naya and Karain depending on what you're doing, M+ or rating for Night Fae, and Naja is kind of your go-to with that nice big haste bonus with Venthyr. But with Kyrian, you do have two solid options. Mechanicos being your nice big new DPS one. This went from never being played to being played almost exclusively in Mythic Plus because it is wonderful. So Braun, as much as I love seeing him out, doesn't do a whole lot. He throws some heals, deals some damage. It's nice. It's useful. Not the reason why you're taking this tree. You get your, of course, the empowered soul conduit first. So I use Piercing Verdict, increasing Spear of Bastion's instant damage and rage regeneration by 49%. Chef's kiss. This also pairs well with what's going to go down there. The notable soul conduits to use as we're going down as well. Stalwart Guardian to reduce the cooldown of shield wall. Unnerving Focus is solid whether you pick bolster or not. The adaptive armor fragment, I know it's boring. It's just like a strength buff, but it's actually really good for Prot Wars. And the condensed Animasphere, immediate healing every 10 seconds. I know it's not much, but 4% of your maximum total health. You have a lot of health as a protection warrior. It's actually, it kind of adds up over time. Really, really nice. I go down the middle here for the 3% haste for 10 seconds up to 5 stacks. This really gives you a nice big bonus in Mythic Plus when you're setting up everything you need. You're getting a nice big boost of speed while you're setting up, which is the most dangerous time for you. You don't have as much rage. You're kind of building it up. You know, you just got 4 seconds of shield block from Reprisal. What are you doing? This gives you a nice big bonus to get that set up. But this is the bread and butter right down here. Effusive Anima Accelerator. Spear of Bastion releases a blast of overcharge anima at your target, dealing 7,000 arcane damage split evenly between all 8 targets. It's nice. Extra damage for your damage cooldown that you're already doing, but that's not the big one, is reduce the cooldown of Spear of Bastion by 4 seconds per affected enemy to a maximum of 20 seconds. This effectively makes Spear of Bastion a 40-second cooldown in any mob trash pull in Mythic Plus. And I'm telling you, you will notice the difference. A lot of the people that I've been running with that were DPS are like asking me if I'm going to save DPS for the rest of them, because I'm peaking 20, 22, 24k on regular pulls every 4 seconds. Now that gets dropped down to a more sustained 13, between 10 and 13k. And honestly, it is insane how much damage this allows you to do combined with Ravager, Revenge, and all of your things like that, while you're not losing any uptime on shield block, ignore pain, or anything else that you need. And it works really, really well from there. Mechanicos is your absolute go-to if you're Kyrian for M+ Prot War. Trust me, you will not regret it. For rating, Pelagos has been my go-to for most fights, especially pure single-target fights where Mechanicos drops off heavily. If there's lots of ads like Kel'Thuzad, Mechanicos is really, really good because you're getting that haste bonus a lot. And, of course, the Spear of Bastion is getting reduced. You're dealing with the ads much quicker. It all works well with synergy with each other, but anything pure single-target, Pelagos is my go-to there. This is kind of what my tree looks like here. Really, really solid. Fun to play. Plain and simple. Big mastery buffs, more chance to block, more attack power. It all really adds well with each other, especially because single target Prot Warrior is lacking a little bit, especially in raid, where you're not doing as much damage. AoE is really our big thing right now. So this is what's going on there and getting that nice little execute, except for Sylvanas, and going from there. Now, usually I don't talk about trinkets that much, but there are a couple of S tier trinkets that you desperately want. One, I really desperately want. I don't have it yet. I want it. Won't drop. But I'm going to get it. Is the Old Warrior Soul from Sylvanas. It drops off her. It gives you a nice big haste bonus as the fight goes on, and it has like a 15-second drop off outside of combat. And for warriors, haste is so friggin' good. So, Old Warrior Soul, if you get it, don't sleep on it. It's fantastic. The two other S tiers. Number one, coming from 9.0, 9.1, still what every tank wants, is the Blood Splattered Scale. Blood Spattered Scale. Not splattered, spattered, sorry. Huge Absorb Shield, so at I level 246, the Absorb Shield is almost 45k, and it deals like 10k damage. Huge for tank busters. If you plan this right, like again, Reaping Scythe, Mordretha, like steal 60% of your damage. Well, guess what? You will barely take any damage if you pop that before she puts that off. Huge, huge boon to your kit. And then the last one is kind of a sleeper, and the way you read it, it doesn't sound that great, but then once you realize how it works is really, really fun, and that is the Shard of Anahilde. He's Aegis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Whatever. Use. Call upon the Anahilde shield for protection, reducing damage you take from enemies in front of you by 6.230 for 8 seconds. 6k, let's say. If the Aegis absorbs at least 22, this is at heroic level, by the way, that I'm reading it, it becomes overcharged and will expel Coalesce power, dealing X amount of holy damage to all enemies in front of you as it expires. There's no cap on this absorb. Every hit that you take will absorb that 6k health. If you reach that threshold, it says when the shield expires, it will do the damage. But at no point is it, it just absorbs 21k. That's the little miss thing that when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound that good. Like, I'll use it. But especially for mobs, things that hit a lot, that don't hit hard, but hit a lot. And that's what wrecks you. Things like the brutal combo with Zav in TOP. I like popping the Shard on that because his tank buster isn't one big bam, it's bam, bam, bam. The Shard is dealing with that very, very well because it's negating a lot of that damage coming through in those little hits. And especially with mob packs, you can pull a lot bigger packs that don't hit as hard. Groundskeepers, things like that. And they barely will touch you because they're constantly hitting you for a little amount of damage. They're hitting you a lot, but for 8 seconds, they're not breaking through that absorb because the way that they wreck you is just by constantly... You have a full immunity for those types of things, which is really, really nice. So using this in the right situations, especially in M+, makes this very, very overpowered and an absolute S tier trinket. Those are the 3 trinkets that I would be going for as well. There are some other ones. There's some resources that I'll link down below for trinkets because there's a lot of them in the game at this point. Some of them are really good. Some of them are really bad. Those are the 3 that if I were you, those are the ones I'd be aiming for. Absolutely, I would be aiming for those 3 if you can and mix them up in one way or another and then go from there. That is my 9.1 guide to Prot Warrior. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe, leave a like there, and if you are having an absolute blast playing this monster of a tank that can just deal stupid amounts of damage. In the last week, my lowest overall DPS in a dungeon has been 6k, which for a tank has been fantastic. I'm not on the higher end of things. I'm not running world first. I'm not running, MDI. That's not me. I just like playing with my friends and pushing keys up with my friends. That's what I like doing. And we pug a lot, and I do notice kind of where the DPS are and things like that. I'm at the bottom portion of good DPS, but I'm at the top of tanks right now. So the damage that I'm dealing is insanely good. So if you want to just have an absolute blast with Prot War, I think it is a very sleeper tank right now. But I think with the MDI coming up in the upcoming weeks, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more protection warriors being run, and the meta might change a little bit there, although the meta in World of Warcraft is very, very slow to change. People are very, very slow there to change. So it is what it is. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you are enjoying Shadowlands as much as I am. If you have any questions about Prot War, my Discord is down below if you want to join that community there and just talk about anything tanking, anything M+, anything nerdy. I don't care. Come on by, check out the stream, and talk. You guys are having yourselves a good one. Thank you very much for listening.